I just want to set the stage for the audience because, managing and optimizing market reference data is a significant challenge across the industry. So let's talk a little bit about what that means. And, based on our research, we've found that the costs associated with optimizing or managing or consuming market data has actually grown exponentially for financial services institutions. They report spending over $35 billion on global reference data annually. And that makes it one of the largest expense categories for financial institutions. And we only see that expense growing. So there's more and more focus on how can these financial institutions really do a better job at controlling market data. And the reason for this, we have found, is that many firms, due to their legacy infrastructures and really some antiquated vendor delivery models, lack the transparency needed to control data usage across a complicated web of multiple data providers linking into multiple legacy systems across multiple divisions. So it's a really very complex, sort of intricate pattern of delivery mechanisms that take place in order to deliver market data to the relevant users.
These systems have built up over time. The need and breadth of data has continued to expand. These are mission critical systems that I think everybody's reluctant to just say, hey, let's redo it. I don't see anybody out there saying, let's have a big revolution. Most organizations don't have that kind of budget or patience. So it's not uncommon to see organizations using, very human involved systems that have built up over time that are, they're robust in their own right. But I think everybody knows or is already on some form of a digital modernization journey that looks different for each individual firm. The type of things we see though is cloud, right? Everybody's like, hey, we're moving to this. Sometimes they'll reach out to us and say, how can we best work with you because we're kicking off this journey? It's different for each. A lot of microservices I hear. I bet you folks in the audience probably have microservice projects going on to decompose their business, because they're always bringing new products to market and the data is ever expanding. It's very difficult. So I think that's something we think a lot about is what's that evolution, and we want to meet people all along that spectrum, but it's not easy, right? There's no good time to just say, let's be modern. It has to happen over time. When I look back at the last 10 years, not enough has changed, in my opinion. And we can talk about some of the more specifics of what we're doing there, but I think we're in the infancy. I would say it's kind of early innings. Now, of course, there's new firms coming that are born in the cloud and take a different approach. But for the big institutions, I would say it's we're just getting out of the gates, and there's no de facto standard on how to do it right. It's emerging. You mentioned earlier that for some instruments, end of day is all you're ever going to need. Maybe I should never say never, but there's a mix, and any large institution is going to have some mix of what it means to be fresh. So let's talk about like the freshness of data. At Quad, we have the full spectrum, like I said, all the way from microsecond tick for tick run an order management system with custom conditionals, all the way out to snapping that at the end, or reference data, things that are very infrequently moving. I've never had anybody ask for more stale data, right? So I think that there's going to always be a insatiable need for freshness, but it's just been complex to handle. Everybody's always wanted the data. It's just the barrier to entry was a little bit too high. And you mentioned Snowflake. There's other technologies that have the barriers come down. These barriers are coming down, right? So if it's helpful to have that data, and I think customers want that data, the sooner you have it, the more interesting things you can do with it, rather than just saying, oh, it's just stale, plug it in at the end of the day. Interactivity is becoming real. So the other thing I'll add to that is the different mechanisms, right? They have to coexist, right? So the idea that saying we're going to go real time as an organization, well, it doesn't happen like that. It's usually like, oh, we wish this was a little bit more fresh. We want this hourly, right? That might be a freshness. We need this minute for minute, or maybe in the same API calls, they want to have a mix. These securities I want to have up to the second, these I want to have the overnight value. We want to enable that, and I think that's how orgs are going to evolve towards real time, but I don't think it's ever going back. I don't think this is a fad that we want fresher data. If you can even just look to other industries, real time wins. we think a lot about this, right? So trying to meet customers where they are on their journey, and SFTP is still common, right? But what we've done, or what we do today, is make sure that the delivery mechanism for whatever piece of content is where you are. And then we do, because we've architected it in this way that the core engine is shared and, kind of born on the cloud solution, we're able to then do that last mile integration that can often be difficult, can be adapted to the needs of the business. And any big institution usually is using multiple mechanisms. It really connects back to what I was saying before, is depending on where you are on that journey, and if you've kind of backed yourself into a corner technologically or with whatever providers you feel locked, I don't know what the right word is for it, but you feel captive. We want to make sure that where I think we differentiate is we want to adapt to that need to provide that avenue to say, like, hey, I need to expand my breadth of data, my frequency of data. There's all these different angles you can take. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's not revolution, it's evolution. And we're confident that if you get the ball rolling, that you'll be delighted with these types of access methods. And hopefully we'll also hear you and say, that's something we're really passionate about, is knowing what you as the client prefer as the mechanism. And like I said, because we've architected that it's a last mile problem for us, we can usually, even if we didn't have it today, we can offer it tomorrow, kind of thing, to say, this is exactly what you needed. Last thing I'll say on that is we are cooking up some things around adapting to exactly what you do internally to reduce those switching costs. I can't go into too much detail, but if that's interesting to folks listening, I would like to hear from those kind of people. But the idea is we can generate that bridge to your legacy systems such that the switching costs come way down.
David, back to switching costs, because I think switching costs is one of the biggest issues in this industry when we think about market data. Many financial institutions think that the cost to switch is prohibitive, just the amount of effort associated with switching vendors or switching different types of data, the onboarding costs, et cetera. So can you talk more specifically about how the QX digital platform can facilitate that?
Yeah, I alluded to some of this, but to get more specific, like an example I see play out fairly regularly is the expanding data set. So somebody on the market data team of a large firm will be working with my team and say, do you have coverage of this data? What's the frequency of data? And they're able to build up a query just using the GUI tools, very accessible, right? They can just an introductory call start to find the right data. And even if we can format it, the person, that first point of contact, this is great. And then it comes to, but how do I integrate it, right? Like now it's like, does not match, the questions never match, and it kind of dies on the vine. What QX does that I'm proud of is that same system that allowed you to build up and confirm that this is what my organization needs can then be adapted. And I mentioned the push versus pull model. So to get more specific, let's say customers come in, they build up a query. This is great, but it's a human process. Maybe they started out with that. This does reduce switching costs if you can just say, hey, for a while we'll survive doing this manually, even if that's not the end target. So they're getting the right data. This is exactly what we need. It's the right price, the right transparency, all the things that they needed. But this is not sustainable. We want this to be more deeply integrated into our system. So those queries and everything you built up there transition to all of our offerings. So you could literally say, I want this exact data, but I want to have it, I want to pull it. Maybe my system needs to dynamically do this. Programmatically, you can pull it. You can even use the exact same name templates, share it over to the other org. Billing and everything would work the same. So that definitely brings down the cost. Or, maybe you want to pull it, right? Or pull would be the API. But if you wanted to push us to your legacy SFTP, you could have a hybrid now, right? You could have, hey, we needed this integrated into these legacy systems we had, but I have this other group who's pulling that same data either via those APIs or via our portal tools. And it's identical, and it's going to show up in your bill that way. It's going to be entitled that way. It can be shared across the organization. That really helps with, their evolution. You don't have to start with the big IT project. You can just make sure the data's right. Start incrementing with it, API as you need, integrate with a legacy system. That's part of evolution. Revolution would be, we're going to do a cutover in Q4 or something like that. That scares me.
But I also like what you said, and I want to underscore it. It's not. I think I've got this correctly, but it's not necessarily a huge IT project, correct? It's more. Go ahead.
It
Why don't you
depends.
talk a little bit about the
It
resource
depends. It shouldn't
requirement?
be.
Okay.
If it's tough to generalize what the spend would be for any
Right.
organization. But my aim every day is to try to make it such that this is not a big IT project for you. I mean, that's, we're a SaaS company at the end of the day. If it is a big IT project, maybe we're not, fulfilling our full mission, and we'll continue to make it easier for you. But like we mentioned, the technical debt, the same thing there. It's tough to see behind the walls of what's the impediment, but I can say for sure that it's more accessible than ever. Let's maybe say that if you're frustrated, which a lot of folks we talk to are frustrated with the situation they've gotten themselves in with the data and the ever, growing demands, it's more accessible than ever to start chipping away at that. There's a pattern in software, we call it the strangler pattern, to basically, you can Google it or whatever, but it's a pattern of evolution that basically says, hey, we carve off a piece of value and we make sure that, where it would provide the most value, we can help you take that chunk off, improve the overall business. I think that real time is this. It's a good question, really, because real time is this term we throw around really loosely in not just our industry, but in all industries. And one end there might be like your airbag is real time. It needs to deploy instantaneously. That's one level, and then there's the it's up to date within an hour. I would say that's why I kind of use the term freshness. And then, if we really wanted to geek out here a little bit, we could get into, latency of data as well, like, what it means to get it delivered to the last mile, even in other organizations. But in terms of data quality, I'm not sure what, angle that can be read in multiple angles, but our systems, at least at QX, whether it's fast moving, I often call it the fast moving data that's streaming through our systems, or the slow moving data that we're bulk loading and making accessible via the engine that I talked about before, the same quality tools to ensure and detect. And these are the areas that we see technology really improving to make sure that things are caught earlier and validated. And it used to be a very human centric process becoming more automated. In that sense of being able to deliver it reliably and that it's confirmed and it went through all the checks, it's the highest quality that you could expect, and if it's not, it'll get fixed. So the value really is not so much on the cost. A lot of people focus on the cost or just the pure scale. I mean, those matter to us a lot, and I think we do a real good job of running an optimized platform. But if I had to say my number one reason for being on the cloud, it's not cost optimization. I mean, we could probably find, we want to run it really cheap or something, a better way to do it. It's about agility, right? Like I mentioned multiple times here, really working hard to make sure we're meeting customers where they are on their journey. And that is evolving. And we're not, I don't look at it like, well, we're just going to be some kind of unicorn tech company and let us know when you get here. We have to kind of evolve with the industry. It would have been hard to predict what the day-to-day looks like today from 20 plus years ago. I think the near term, if we try to break it into near term, long term, there's some obvious near terms. I mean, data quality is going to improve. There's a lot of energy going into this and all layers of the stack. The tooling's better than ever. And you mentioned, I agree with the human touch element is super important. I think technology can also help that, because if, through things like better predictive tools or AI or whatever you want to use to solve your problem in this case, it can have the humans focus on the right thing or arm them with the best information. So I think, sometimes it's not versus, it's, like we're turning our data quality people into cyborgs, to help them to better equipped to make those right decisions. I don't think humans are leaving, we're augmenting So yeah, data quality, I think customer service as well, the ability to track down, answer questions. Why is something the way it is, right? That's also kind of arming the human element. I'm not an advocate for like turning everything in support into a chatbot. That's not how we operate. We're known for great customer service, but arming those people to be able to answer the questions, remove any doubt about whatever data they're receiving as fast and as confidently as possible.
I want to thank David for sharing all these great insights. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Gene.